All right. We are live on Facebook. Hi, Jacklyn. How are you?
Good, Joe. How are you?
Good. So, this is the International Society of Professional Wedding Photographers. I am Joe Milton, and this is our ongoing series of interviews with the best wedding photographers in the world. And we happen to have one with us today, Jacklyn Greenberg. Hi, Jacklyn. How you doing?
Good, Joe. How are you?
And you are operating, mostly your main market is New York. Is that correct?
I would say New York, Connecticut, New England, but we are all over the world
You're
when we
all
need to
over?
be.
Yeah. So I think the first question a lot of people have from, especially from that New York area is, how are things? We have to talk about it, at least for a minute, in terms of, the lockdown, the quarantining going on. New York is in the news a lot. So what's it like from your perspective there?
So we are actually in Connecticut. It might as well be a suburb of New York. It's that close.
Hmm.
But we are in a full different state. So it is much worse in the city because we have a little bit of land here. We have our backyard. We have our garden. It's personally a little easier for us to go through because we have some space.
Yeah.
But we have been on lockdown. Chris and I were actually traveling and came home to a lockdown. But we have an off-road vehicle that we had custom built for us, basically for this purpose. We never thought we'd have to actually use an off-road camper that we built to actually keep us away from people, but that's why we did it. So we were fully self-contained for a few weeks on the road and not seeing humans that entire time. And then we came home to a full lockdown, no groceries. It took 10 days for us to get delivery, groceries delivered just the other day. But I mean, we're keeping to ourselves. We're keeping our little bubble here, not letting anyone or anything burst it. Chris spent 25 years in the hospital, so he's got very good sterile technique, which I have gladly taken on. But I also don't like to touch a lot of things anyway, so that hasn't been too difficult for me.
Yeah.
But it's been a juggle emotionally to juggle between just taking on what is out there in the world and what's going on in the world and bringing that within and finding our own strength to keep going and to know that we will push through this and we'll just come out stronger on the other side. So we've actually been working more hours than usual. It seems like a lot more hours, although we are on that kind of Groundhog Day feeling.
What day is it?
It doesn't matter. It's daylight right now. It'll be nighttime later on. The schedule I'm used to working on, so it's okay. So we're just trying to get things done. Lots of good projects, keeping ourselves busy.
Yeah. It's definitely a change of pace, though. I mean, you do have the day-to-day. The sun still comes up, but the photographers that I've been talking to they're trying to find things to do, things that they may have put on the back burner when they were in their busy season. Now they're able to get to some of those things. But, we're all struggling with the same issue that there's not a lot of income coming in. And so we're all looking forward to when we can start up weddings again, right?
Well, I think we have to be a little bit creative right now. So we actually just, in this past week, we booked a wedding, an elopement, and a portrait session just this past week.
Fantastic.
So it's kept us with that positive feeling as well, but we've had very clear conversations with our clients that you're investing in an experience with us. This isn't going to be my wedding's happening on this day and this is exactly what's going to go on. We're basically investing in the fact that we will work together at some point in our lives. And we're just on a flow together. We're going to keep supporting each other. We're not going to use the C word for canceling. Right. We're going to stay, and I've had these straight up conversations. We're going to think about postponing. We're going to think about having like something different go on, do an elopement with a party later, or focusing ourselves in a different way. So they've all been very grateful for those straight up conversations, and it's made them feel comfortable to book with us in a time when everyone kind of wants to just hold on to what they have close and not make a move outwardly. But in all reality, we are their answer right now. We are our client's answer to what do I do? And what they're finding is because we've had, and I'm not saying what what anybody's finding, really. Like, this is just kind of how it feels. Oh, did you hear the thunder that time?
I heard that one.
That was really loud. It's really intense to have this huge storm move through. So as I'm talking to you, I'm seeing all this beautiful lightning. Yeah. That one was really loud. But so I think right now is our time to be there for our clients as the answer. Yeah. So their vacations were canceled. They don't want to leave home. They're scared to do things. But what they're finding is that the things that matter most are right there in their face. Is their family, their loved ones, the people that they can't see. I mean, even being able to go see your parents or to go travel to see close family and friends can't happen. So I think, and this is what feels good in our hearts with the clients I've spoken to, is they're like, we want to invest in you because this is all that matters right now, is having those memories of my family about how I feel about them. So we've surprisingly booked more in this week than we have before this call went on, which is really
that's really
kind of
interesting.
crazy. Yeah, but we're getting so much done. Like that's the best part about it.
Yeah. Well, I think people are coming to the realization that it's not the end of weddings. It's weddings are still going to be happening, but you just need to be creative about how to interact with your clients and how to give them that reassurance, like what you're talking about, that you will be there. That you're there to support them and answer their questions and be a resource for them. Because they're on the optimistic side. People say, well, there may be a lull right now, but they're going to come, roaring back with a vengeance when time is right. It's just no one knows exactly when is the question. So, but I like your approach.
I think there's also the concept of things maybe getting smaller, and we love our elopements. We love our small weddings because they're not spending as much money on having so many guests. They still have a chunk left over that they want to put towards artwork. So what we're finding is even with our smaller elopements, they're investing the same amount in post-wedding sales and post-wedding artwork that we are still having huge collections of $10,000, $12,000 for an elopement. And they want to invest in our biggest album, the same as one of our big wedding clients that has so many details and so much going on, because this is all they've done. This is like they've pared it down to what means the most.
Right.
And so they're still investing a huge amount into artwork afterwards. So we actually absolutely love our elopements and smaller weddings. Like that's where it's at right now. So, and the big ones are still great. We don't get me wrong. We absolutely love the chaos and the commotion and everything that goes on. But we are grateful for that time that we have more one-on-one, more intimately, and that's turning over in artwork sales. So even though we don't make as much up front because we're not working 2 photographers for 8, 10, 12 hours, we're making it up in the end, which is really cool.
Yeah. Well, talk a bit more about that artwork. So when you say they're investing in artwork, what's your approach to that? What sort of artwork are you providing? What sort of artwork are your clients interested in? How do you go about, educating them in terms of what they can be investing in, that kind of a thing?
That's a great question. So we invest in our clients from the very beginning, and we give them all the strength and power to know about everything we have. But before we make that a sales pitch, we start with listening to them and finding out what their needs are, what's important to them. And down to the tiniest detail, is there a look or a glance, or what would be the one most important thing I could put back into your hands? And is there a place in your home that you'd want to sit back and experience that? Would it be like sitting in your bedroom and you wake up see it first thing in the morning on the wall, that feeling and that energy? Is it when you're sitting in your favorite chair in your living room? So they're literally describing their favorite, most meaningful moments, where they want to see it in their home, how it makes them feel, where they want to see it. And then you can sit back and say, well, I think this is going to be the best thing for you.
Okay.
And
so understanding their needs, really.
Literally having them describe their needs to you, but actively listening and engaging, not just saying, okay, not as cut and dry as I'm saying it now, but it's a more lengthy conversation.
Sure.
But then,
well, because sometimes the client doesn't know what they don't know, and they don't know what's available to them. So it's a back and forth. What are your sort of understanding their gut feeling, and then you kind of translate that into products. What would solve those problems?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I give them the strength to go with their gut the entire way.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes this conversation of, hey, this is a collaboration. We're going to do this together. You guys are going to provide you, and I'm going to provide you back you, but I'm also going to give you a way to have that in your hands forever and ever. So it's not just about the photos. It's actually about the artwork, and the photos are what's going to end up in the artwork. So it's not, we don't really talk about the shoot. We don't talk about shooting. I get what's going to happen at the wedding. They're going to exchange rings or lightsabers or flowers. People have their own thing. Right. They're going to kiss once, maybe more, hopefully more. Right. They're going to have some type of food, whether it's past hors d'oeuvres or sit-down dinner or, So I get that part, but what I want to find out is about them. So what happens is they start to visualize the artwork. They start to visualize what would be most meaningful to them, and all you are doing is then providing. But I instill them with all the education. I say, here's all the details. Here's why I have these albums. Here's why I have this artwork. Here's everything that I've done my research on and why, because now you're educated. So now all you have to do is tell me what feels right to you, because now you know everything, and then I just make it happen. And it's just like a crazy easy flow.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah. Well, I imagine you have to show them lots of samples too to sort of let them visualize in their own mind what's possible. Like if they've never seen a large art print or canvas print, or if they've never seen a high quality album before, I'm sure you have lots of samples and examples to show them, right?
Well, so the funny thing is, we have just a very few. We have a very few, but what I've done is Chris and I will photograph every single piece of artwork that our clients order. We get it in here to us first. We photograph everything. So we've made a beautiful, we call it an artwork menu. There's no pricing on it. I tell them straight up that I am the price list, so that if they have questions, it builds communication and connection between us. But so our initial call, because all of these sales happen before we shoot. So our initial call, once we find out what they're interested in, it kind of morphs into, hey, let's look at our PDF together. And that way I can show you beautiful photos and describe it to you with the pictures. They don't actually, but then I tell them to forget everything. I don't want them to think about it after that. I want them to focus on what feels good and creating this work together. Then when they come see their photos in person for the very first time, that's when they finally get the samples in their hands, in their lap. But it all clicks because they've seen so much along the way that they're now like, oh, this is the one I know I want.
Yeah.
But I don't let them make that decision first. They're not allowed to add albums when they book us. If they want to add artwork at that time, I only let them add the smallest album with the fewest amount of pages, because I don't want them to think about their artwork right now. We don't know what's coming out of it. And I tell them straight up, I'm the world's worst salesperson. I'm like, get the smallest book. Don't get the big book. It's not my album. Right. It's not going to be in my life. You have to find what feels right to you.
Yeah.
So do we have some sales that are crazy huge? We did a portrait shoot recently, and it was a $38,000 artwork sale.
Nice. That
blew my own mind.
Yeah.
I can't really comprehend that. And the month before, they did their engagement session at $22,000.
Yeah.
So we're expecting to have this one wedding client be a $100,000 client in 1 year. Well, maybe a year and a half now with what's going on. But
that's the kind of client we all want, right?
Right. It's a crazy concept.
Well, what does that even look like? What does an artwork sale of that magnitude look like? What sort of products would they end up with?
Everything.
The whole menu.
And then some. I mean, pretty much. Yeah. So when we were doing their in-person reveal and design consultations, we were at their house in Charlotte. And what's really funny is they did this the month before with their engagement session. So they knew what to expect. They knew how we flow. We had rented an Airbnb in Charleston for their engagement session. And that was the month earlier. They did $22,000 in artwork. We brought our travel projection screen, our projector. We rented a really cute Airbnb so that everything would be along our aesthetic still. And they blew their own minds with how much they love the photos. We always set our expectations to one photo. just one, maybe two,
Yeah.
possibly 4 or 5.
Right.
That's just how we say it. Did we expect to have 140 photos that they loved so much they didn't know what to do with them?
Mm.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
But we just keep it all, like, they can choose that.
Yeah.
That's not for us to choose. So they had already been through it that time, and they said this was so moving and meaningful for them that they flew us back to Charlotte the next month to photograph their family. He has
fantastic.
2 kids.
Yeah.
And they knew in their hearts already what they wanted.
Yeah.
But they didn't know what their photos were going to be. But I talked to every family member, found out their desires, their needs. Mm-hmm. What's meaningful to them? Even the 12-year-old son, what does he want out of it? Because his father knowing how bad he wants that photo with his father just makes that all that more important. So that means each one has their own moment. Mm-hmm. So that's just 4 moments. Mm-hmm. So we know we sold 4 photos. The question is, can we nail it to such an extent that each one wants their own set of artwork for each one of their rooms? And that's where we start thinking past all that.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? And what that looks like is one big family room wall, 15 and a half by 6 feet, with 11 canvases. We worked with JAGstudios to do their Canvas Pro, which is absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
It feels like suede. I mean, it's the most beautiful canvas on a beautiful custom wood fiber panel. So everything is made custom. They love the fact that it's made in Italy. And then we designed everything right then and there with them to know that this whole wall was going to have every one of these moments in a wall gallery.
Yeah.
I think wall galleries were like a thing of the past. And I've told clients straight up, I'm like, you don't want to do a gallery, a photo gallery. I forget what they're even called because they're always 5x7s and 8x10s. This was 3 30x40s. And then the smallest size out of 11 photos was 16x20. Wow. The whole thing was huge.
It must look absolutely stunning, though, to have it all finished on the wall. It must be mind-blowing. Yeah.
We did their wall, the daughter's room, son's room, and then the son's mother. So he was married before and had kids. And his ex-wife also got a piece for her home.
Wow.
So there's all these other elements that you don't always think about right away. So they also did an album. They also did a reveal box, which is another JAGstudio piece. The albums we do all with Renaissance albums. As you know, their work is beyond stunning.
They're beautiful, yeah.
So beautiful. Only 1 photo per page. Everything is retouched, edited, and retouched with the image salon. And when we do the reveal, we do it in person that very same day. And to be honest, when we flew back down to Charlotte, we forgot our screen. We didn't even think about the screen. Oh. We just brought the projector. So we're at their house, and we're like, where can we project this? So you had white sheet.
Right.
This big wrinkled white sheet, and we clipped it to these 2 stands that we had. And,
it worked.
It was the worst. It was like green and contrasty and wrinkled. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter because they were focused on how things felt. And they knew we were going to take care of them in the end.
Yeah.
So we just delivered that. When I said that we were down south right before all this pandemic started, we were actually delivering their artwork. And there was so much artwork between the 2 shoots that we couldn't fit it in our truck.
Wow.
So we had half of it, about 2/3 of it, drop shipped from Italy. The rest we drove down and had this huge reveal in their home. And every piece got opened up. And especially with Graphy, everything folds down so neatly. So like all the packing was professional. It was nice that they could see the packing. All our Renaissance albums, we had pre-wrapped in biodegradable cellophane with big bows. I mean, it was a huge reveal.
Well, that's an event unto itself.
It was. And we spent 10 hours hanging 22 pieces of artwork with them.
Wow.
And then sat around and drank a few bottles of whiskey.
But that's a great level of customer service that I think a lot of photographers can learn from, to say, my clients are willing to make a huge investment. I'm making an investment in them as well, and I'm willing to put myself out. And it's not like I wouldn't even call it overselling to them. I would say that's meeting their needs, because they probably are thrilled to spend that money to get those photos, because they're one of a kind. It's artwork. It's totally unique to that family. And if they have the means to do it, they're probably happy to do it.
Well, and even people, it's not my position to figure out what someone else will send.
Right.
And I can't put my own sending needs and requests and thoughts onto somebody else. I have to be there just as that guide and that bridge to allow them to have what they want out of life. Yeah. But by listening to them and handing them back something that was more, that went beyond their expectations, and then just saying, what do you want out of this? Mm-hmm. Do you think this would be meaningful if we put this here? What would you like to do? They did everything. Yeah. I tell them straight up, I'm like, look, I call through more, well, I tell them this, but the truth is the image salon calls through more photos. So I tell them I call through more photos a year than they can comprehend, right? And the reality is we do. I mean, we must be anywhere between 10,000 and 250,000 photos a year that we call through or have in the past. That we've got this part down. And so I tell them that I'm going to drive and they're going to be the GPS. I did at one point tell them that they could steer, but that was super scary. If I'm driving and they're steering, it didn't really sound very good. So I tell them now that I will drive and they'll be the GPS and tell me where they want to go. How do they want this to work? And it happens for them. Yeah. So
it's a good way to visualize it too. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It makes it very clear for them, and it helps them feel in control.
Yes.
Because everyone knows our GPS controls us now because we don't know how to remember directions.
Right.
So, and that's what I keep doing is empowering them. Yeah. Empowering them to show their vulnerable side, empowering them to say things they've never told anyone before about how they feel about each other and the things that they love. And this is for weddings, this is for portraits, this is for life, it's for people. Even if we're doing headshots, we talk about these things for business and how that will change their business and forward thinking. And business clients who you would expect that just want to do the headshot for their website are now buying that headshot in portraits for their home. Yeah. So I don't even know how we went. Well, I do know how we went from let's just shoot and burn to now selling more in artworks than we could even comprehend. But it's because we have people who make beautiful artwork. We have our silent business partners. The image salon has saved us from hours and hours and hours behind the computer. Renaissance albums, every time they do an album, it's perfect. And if it's not, they fix it. And the same thing with graphy. Like, it's just remarkable pieces that we feel proud to say to somebody, hey, this is why it's here. Right. They can then make the choice to say, I want it or I don't.
Well, keep in mind, even with the best products, the photography has to be there too. So you've got that as well.
That's true.
Yes, that's true. Right? You got to have the skills and the art. And I know you have a fine art background, right? Do you bring the fine art background and the fine art education into your photography? Let's talk about your photography a little bit. So in terms of your approach to weddings and portraits and how you bring that art background to it. Because when you create artwork and you can present it well, it's a winning formula.
Actually, I think that's probably a huge part of it that I never really paid attention to. I see more of my science background. But my art background, of course, is there. It's something that's been within me since before I was even in college. I mean, before I was in school to have that study. And I thought about it recently. I think I was back in 8th grade, and I was ripping out Calvin Klein magazine ads. Do you remember them? With Anna Nicole Smith, those beautiful black and whites rolling on the beach together. And I used to have those all over my wall. What I didn't realize is that for years in middle school and high school, I was studying and staring at beautiful black and white photos that moved me, that made me say, this is so beautiful, I want to see it. Right. And so once I started traveling and realizing that I wanted to take what I was seeing and how it was making me feel, and I wanted to bring it home to share with people and make them feel good as well. But I started to see the connection between photography and what it does within humans, how it makes us feel something, it moves us. It's literally a piece of paper, now digital, of blacks and whites and lines and gray tones or colors on a paper. Technically, it's next to nothing. But how we've taken a three-dimensional situation and captured it in a second dimension, where we've chosen to frame, to compose, to expose, to create all of these elements that we've found in our frame, in our box of our sensor. Now it's a sensor. Right. Years ago. on a piece of film.
Yeah.
But all of those decisions, those choices have effects on the viewer. And so the fact that we can describe and be as descriptive as we want to control someone else's feelings in a sense. And I don't mean control in a strong way,
No,
not manipulate.
more like affect them. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's very powerful what we have the ability to do as photographers. And I think that's always stayed at the forefront of what's been behind why we're doing what we are. And I think that's what set us apart a bit, is that from the very beginning, I've always been very strong on something being aesthetically appealing, having great composition and great exposure, but also being very emotionally compelling. And that's stayed one of our strengths. I mean, if you go through the few photos that I sent to you, we don't have very much, I don't want to say mastery or not trickery, but like we're not doing crazy things in our photos. They're very straight up. They're very straightforward. They're very what was in front of us in that moment, but they're a very strong moment.
Yeah.
And a moment that usually requires us to build such a connection with the people that we're with that it's like been there all along. And I think part of that energy is what shows in our photos, is the ability to be close in personal moments, or being right there for hysterical moments, but not feeling that we are part of that photo.
Right.
That you get to have your own time, that you skip us and you go from who's existing in that moment and who's viewing it, and they can have that viewer can have their own connection.
Yeah.
They don't feel that there's a photographer in the midst of everything.
But I think and we'll look at your photos in a second, but I think what you have is one of these rare abilities that you have a lot of photographers that are pretty good at capturing a moment or a split second kind of a thing. They're good at the timing, but they don't necessarily have the aesthetic or the compositional skills that someone like you might have, because it's a combination. It's a combination of getting the reality, the moment, the peak of the action, but also being thoughtful in terms of how you compose it, how you approach it, the angles. There's more going on in your mind versus, oh, I got that split second in time. I'm putting more thought into it as well, in addition to that, right?
There is. Yeah. Now you pretty much just know. Can I keep that recording to put on the website?
Absolutely.
Because that's pretty much nailed. I'm like having to do the words now for our website, and so ironically, the words are very difficult for me because I don't know how you put the extent of what's going on up here in words. So our website has always just been, here's a huge amount of photos, and here's like a little snippet about me, a little snippet about Chris. Figure it out for yourself.
Yeah. Well, to some degree, I mean, clients are going to just emotionally react and connect to the photos or not. And sometimes they don't know why, but they have a feeling that this is something special, right?
And it's been our filter. I mean, it's been kind of secretly, I've always kept it that way, not just because I don't want to take the time to sit and like figure out the words and how they go down.
Right.
I'm sure I could do it. That's why I said it's not like I'm not capable of it.
Nobody likes writing about themselves.
Yeah, it's really difficult.
No one likes that.
It's either that or realize that this is our natural filter. If you go on our website and you just don't get it, then we're not for you. And that's okay.
Yeah. Because
we want to work with maybe 10, 15 clients a year for weddings, because also we do portraits with those same clients, other portrait shoots around. But because the weddings are so intense and so investing, we want to have that time and that connection and communication with our clients that also encourage them to invest more.
Yeah.
So we definitely have created a filter over the years of being like, if you can't handle these photos, don't bother inquiring. And it's okay. Like, I don't mind not dealing with 800 inquiries a year.
Right.
It's a lot of work. So we definitely are.
Is that one way that you like you said, talk about filter to narrow down who your clients are? I mean, how do you, I guess, either find them or filter down your techniques or your selection of how to find the right client that works with you, that you feel a connection to, or you feel that you can really deliver to? Because there's not always a good connection between photographer and client, and ideally we'd love to have a great connection with every single client. But how do you go about that?
Ideally is the way. So we do have a great connection with all our clients. That is I've been really stubborn about that from the very beginning. And maybe that's just me, but I don't want to have bad experiences. Something that photography has instilled into me from traveling. So I guess part of that stems on why I came home from traveling overseas. So I had major back surgery, and I had dealt with severe back pain for about 10 years. And I laid in bed for about a year and a half, came home in a wheelchair.
Oh my gosh.
From
I had no idea.
Yeah, maybe nobody does really. It's so long ago.
They do now.
They do now. So it was a really tough time in my life. I didn't think I'd ever walk again. A year and a half of not being able to walk and lie in bed. And for some people, that's forever. So, I take every day with a huge amount of gratitude. But also during that time when I was at such a low point, I realized that I could look at photos and they can make me feel good. And that's how strong and how powerful they were. So the time that I spend with clients, I want my time. Forget about their time. I just want my own time to feel good.
Yeah.
Because our own time is very sacred. So if I want that, then what do our clients want, especially when we're dealing with your real lives? We're not dealing with business and corporate. And this goes with that as well. But the nature of what we're doing in weddings and portraits, we're dealing with people in their everyday lives in very real emotional situations. So all of that should be charged with incredibly good energy. I am the biggest and most stubborn person. Well, I think I'm the biggest. Maybe I take that back. Most stubborn person when it comes to who we're going to work with and what that experience is going to be like. Yeah. So there are a few things that we did. And we put those kind of inhibitors in the way. Like, we are more expensive than most, so you have to make a sizable investment to work with us. You have to fill out my questionnaire beforehand. And I've had people straight up that, well, can't we just talk about it on the phone? And I've had that over and over again. Can't you just give me a price and quote me? Actually, no, it's not fair for me to give you a price until I find out what's important to you, because everything we do is custom. So you tell me a little bit about what's going on for your wedding. You'll see in the questions that are in there, it's not that invasive, but give me the grounding so that we can get into what really matters when we're on the phone together. Yeah. And I just do it to make them work for me before I work for them, so that we start to pick up this very balanced relationship, that this is going to be a collaboration and not me just working for you. And that's very difficult with some high-end clients who are like, I'm paying you a lot of money, you do for me. But they understand it takes very little time for them to understand. So most of our work comes word of mouth or from wedding planners. We have some wedding planners who want to work with us for their biggest clients because they know they can just hand their clients off and we will take care of everything. Right. They don't have to keep checking in or communicating.
They don't
They're
have
just
to
like,
worry.
Oh, there you go, have fun. And it's one less thing. It's a huge less thing that they have to deal with. And the same thing, we have a very close venue that we work with here in Connecticut. It's a Relay and Chateau, most high-end venue here in the state, and they send us all of their work because they know the same thing. We're good with working with a high-end clientele. We're good working with any clientele. Yeah. We want to take care of them. We're going to give them an experience like no other, and we're going to make them feel incredible, which is in turn going to make the people who refer us the winner. Yeah. Not us. Yeah. So they want to refer us because it makes them look good. Sure. So it kind of keeps that cyclical situation going. Other than that, it's really hard to get leads. Wedding Wire was a huge flop because we're not at that price point, even with an associate team. Right. We just get too many general inquiries that they want package A, B, or C. Right. They're expecting it. They're on that flow. Right. And we don't do that. We know our
But that's what most people, other photographers will do. Yeah. But I can definitely see a questionnaire would definitely be a good filter because they're going to want you bad enough to go through that steps, right? And that's going to filter out a lot of people that are just saying they put out this mass email to 100 photographers and just filter the responses back. Yeah. It's not going to happen for you.
So we have secret questions on there that really tell us a lot.
Like what? So what's some good questions?
What are your wedding colors?
Okay.
That's a secret one for us because if your wedding is, if it's pink, and more pink and layered with pink, chances are we're not going to be a good fit. And I've experienced that. That is from experience of us just not jiving together.
No pink
and
weddings.
Needing to call it quits. No pink weddings. I do have clients that have pink in their colors, but the other one that we get all the time is, why do I even need to pick colors? And I'm like, that's our client. Because then we understand that it doesn't necessarily matter to them, that there are things that matter more to them, i.e. their family, their friends, the emotional part, than picking colors or having details. We also ask them to tell us about their day, how they found us, what drew them to our work. That's huge. But our other big one is, what is your budget? What is your perceived budget? And I say it to them even when we're on the phone together, is, what is your concept of budget? And somebody laughed at me the way I said it like that once, but it is. It's a concept, because where did you get the numbers from?
Yeah.
Did you read them in a magazine? And I've had so many people say, my budget is $3,000, I'm not going over. I'm like, well, where did that number come from? And they said, well, my sister got married and that's what she spent.
Right.
And I said, well, did you like her photos? And
No.
every time they go, no. I say no.
Right.
I'm like, maybe we should reconsider. But so it's interesting, the levels of filters. The other question we put on is, what is your budget? Are you willing to increase your budget when you find someone, or however we worded it, photos that will last a lifetime, or that will move you to last a lifetime? And that is the other tell-off, because I've had people that say, I'm not increasing my budget, but after the phone, and after we talk on the phone, they're like, I get why I need to now. Or we have people who are like, absolutely, I'm willing to increase it. And I'm like, okay, perfect. Then we don't need to talk about price that much.
Right.
We need to just find out who they are, and then we'll just go over the pricing at the end. So the whole concept of price is very interesting. We actually have a pre-made email when people are like, what is your pricing? And we say, well, look, we want to get to know you, fill out the questionnaire, we'll get on the phone and we'll discuss that. And they say, I just want your price, I don't want to waste your time. However they put it. Everyone has a different way of putting it. And we have an email that internally says, what do you cost? Because that's what we're getting from them. So we know which one to send them. And it basically is, our internal title is, what do you cost?
Right.
But it goes out to them, and it just says straight up, like, we need to know what's important to you. It's not fair to you if we don't find out what these things are, because then they're just numbers. They're not going to mean anything.
Yeah.
And I think that also shows a good point, is that we also don't have discounts. We don't give things. We don't pad things. We don't have anything for artwork. I mean, it's just like, here's everything. We're fair to everybody. You still get 100% of us. Like, we're going to give you everything. And we've had people say, can you give us discounts or anything you can do? And I tell them straight up, it's not fair to you if the next person that comes along pays less than you did.
Yeah.
And when you
Good
say
point.
it in that sense, it hits them pretty hard.
And I think that a lot of them ask that because they're told to ask that. They read the magazines and they read all that other stuff, and they say, always ask for a discount. So, on one hand, I don't blame them, because they don't go shopping for wedding photography every day, and they're just kind of following advice. So it's up to the photographer, it's up to you to educate them why that may not be the right question to be asking.
Yeah, and I think in a very conscious sense that they may not know. And so you are the expert to educate them.
Exactly.
So the more that we can educate our clients, the more they get on the same page as to what we're doing and why, the easier they can give that up and then just feel how things are going and tell you what they want out of it. So I have this straight up conversation with them. And I tell our clients, this is why I'm educating you. I want you to sit back and tell me how something feels. And I want you to say, oh my God, I love that more than anything, and I want to see it right here on my wall. Or I want to hold it in my lap in an album. Or, they tell us that. So they put themselves into directing what's going to come out of this. I just am here to make it happen.
Yeah. I think a lot of photographers forget that, because we're in the business, we're dealing with it day in and day out. We forget to have empathy with the clients who never, ever, hardly ever shop for photography services. It's a rare thing for most people. There are exceptions, of course, but most people don't shop for portrait photography all the time or wedding photography all the time. So it's a new thing. It's like when for the first time you have to shop for a plumber. It's like, what do I do, right? How much should it cost? I have no idea.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
and like with photography, I tell them to go look at other people and call other photographers and make sure that we are definitely the right fit, because they're investing a fair amount into us. And most of the time, almost all the time when that happens, they come back.
Yeah.
Because they say, we've already spoken to photographers. This is a phone call that we haven't had. It's so different than everything we've experienced, where they're like, okay, you're getting married. Here's the packages. Here's what we do. Here's us. And in reverse, I'm like, tell me more. I want to find out about you and how I can then be there for you. And that flips everything for them.
Yeah.
And it allows them to be the ones to decide to make that investment, decide how freely they're going to invest. And they end up going from, I have a $3,000 budget, to then investing $8,000, $10,000 in artwork and being happy about it.
Exactly.
It could have been more.
Right.
That would have been fine.
Right. Yeah, and that's the best part, when you know that they're happy for that purchase, because you know you're giving them something of value for that, and it's a win-win, really. So.
It's huge. They keep spending, and you keep delivering, and they keep feeling good, and they keep coming back for more.
Right.
So it's kind of a crazy concept. I mean, we just I was putting together a tutorial, and I asked this group, what would you want to know about sales? And it's interesting, one of the first responses was, what are your averages? What do you average per sale?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that it meant to be about just my sales. I mean, but I did two things. I realized that our portrait average is $12,000 per client, but our dream client average, this was very interesting, was $16,500 average.
How much again? You cut out a bit there.
16.5.
Okay.
16,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I did something a little bit different. I said, okay, here's our average sales for 2019, came up with 12,000. Let me go back in 5 years, pull our dream clients, the ones that we had the best working relationship with. We loved everything that they did. We wanted to spend more time with them. They wanted to spend more money with us. And the average was 16,500. Dramatically different than what we're doing on a daily basis. But it gives me that hope that, hey, I can take this now and get those dream clients again, recreate that situation, and end up raising what our averages are, even though they're already insane. Our wedding average for the past 3 years was $35,000. That's insane. And that's in the past 5 years with, I think I said 3, I'm at 5 years with our dream clients, $35,000 per wedding. And our average wedding.
That's a good average.
Crazy average.
Yeah.
our average wedding in the past, I don't know if I did last year or it was the year before, was $18,000. So a little bit different, but our dream clients are spending almost double our average. So in 5 years, we've had enough weddings to have us be at $35,000 a client. How do we then make that happen again and again? So we have to look into what happened for those specific clients and focus our energy that way. So it's very interesting to go, here's our average, here's our dream client average, and how to focus that situation.
Yeah, I'm wondering what the percentage of the overall wedding budget the photography is for those clients, because there must be pretty there must be pretty big budgets overall.
Some are and some aren't.
Yeah.
Some people, we are their splurge.
Yeah.
We are their big splurge. We have some people who I might look like a bank, but I'm not. And I definitely, as much as I have money come in and out, we are just a business. We're not, we're not a bank. So I tell them that straight up. But I'm happy to do a payment schedule with them. And since we've been using HoneyBook, it's all become a lot easier. So HoneyBook, we were on ShootQ for almost 10 years. And the new system wasn't up to par. We had invested in a lifetime investment. They hadn't switched us over in 3 years that we had invested in. And it was just getting to be too much. And HoneyBook actually approached me and said, we think you'll love our system. So I looked into it and I was like, this is pretty easy. Definitely a learning curve, but one of the cool things they have is being able to have your clients sign into having automatic withdrawals. So you can create payment schedules, and they have to sign up for the automatic withdrawal, but then you don't have to then go out and send invoices, which HoneyBook does automatically. But so doing the payment schedules and letting them be flexible to what works best for them has been a huge help. So some of our clients are paying $500 a month for the next year and a half. And we're like, all right, Adam's payroll. And then we have clients that are doing 50% down, 50 later. Some clients say they need a payment schedule, but when we get to the end, they're like, we'll just pay it in full. So we just kind of stay on a flow. But
I actually honestly haven't heard of HoneyBook before, so I'll have to go look into that.
I mean, it's very simple. It's meant for more than just the photography industry. So it was a little bit of a different mindset, but a lot of elements are the same. And so I've become one of their educators to help people then find ways to make that business side and that client management side be a little bit easier for them. And I mean, I don't mean to be like specifically name dropping, but these companies are core of helping us create our business.
And we're not saying it has to be that particular tool, but it's an idea for photographers to say, okay, if you're going for some higher sales figures, and these are some tools that may help you accomplish that, you should look into them.
Exactly. So, I mean, they've definitely been a huge part of creating a new aesthetic for us, rather than the old suit-to aesthetic. So that's also helped make things look a little nicer for clients, and it's easier for them to handle.
Well, and there you go again. You're creating value and something easier for your clients to make it, to spend money and to get what they want, and to make it. The more you can make it easier for the clients, the better, and they're going to appreciate that. All right, let's look at some pictures.
I tell them that straight up. I'm like, I want to make this as easy as possible. You just tell me what you need, and I make it happen. And I mean, that's just what happens.
Okay.
Trust me, Joe, the last thing I expected 12 years ago was being able to say our average is $35,000 a client.
Hey, it's a great thing to shoot for, right?
It's incredible, but it's insane. I just never expected that.
Okay. With your photos on it now?
I can, and I see us too. That's awesome.
Yes. Yay, technology.
Oh my God, it's crazy.
So we're going to talk about some of your pictures, because as much as it's great to talk about the business side and sales and connect with the clients, ultimately it comes down to being able to create the artwork, create the photos for your clients, and to set yourself apart to say, here's my style, here's my approach, here's what you can expect from me as a photographer, right?
I mean, that's why they're coming to you in the first place.
That's right. So let's talk about this picture. This was obviously a lovely peak moment, but like I was saying before, you can get a peak moment, but you also want to look at capturing expression. You want to look at camera placement. You want to look at backgrounds. All the different photographic things that sometimes are instinctual to photographers, but and you don't necessarily notice unless you're a photographer or unless you have been educated or thinking about it, right? What you're looking for. But sometimes you're not even thinking about it, consciously. It's just subconsciously. You say, oh, this is a better place for me to shoot it from down here.
Yeah, there's it is subconscious after a while. I think it does take some thought early on. I think the more energy you put into this, the more it becomes second nature. So I think what's nice is when you consider the concept of creating imagery and working with clients in sales, because essentially we run a business. We're not here just to create the imagery. There is some type of trade. They pay you and you create this work for them. But having the ability to describe what it felt like to be there for them and to put yourself in their shoes, how would they want to feel when they see this moment later on? How will this moment exist generations from now? And what will the viewer at that point, which could be their kids, their grandkids, how will this make them feel? That's also another element to what you're shooting, why you're shooting, and how you're shooting it. In this moment, I was sure there's a lot of options of where you want to be, but this was my only option at this point.
Right. Sometimes you don't have a lot of choices. But the fact that you're obviously getting soaked in the rain here as well. So.
Yes, I did not lose my camera, although I was nervous that I was going to, but I did shoot the balance of the day in scrubs. And after this wedding, from this wedding on, we always is mandatory for every single person on our team to have an entirely second wedding outfit with them after this wedding.
Yeah.
And we did spend some time with some hair dryers and trying to undo the moment that we had just experienced. But as we were shooting their ceremony, it was a beautiful day. No one had any clue that it was going to be like this. We had heard there was going to be rain. Obviously, you see an umbrella, but we didn't expect what hit us. And so behind that railing was a lake. And we heard this noise in the middle of the ceremony, and we're like, what is that sound? It was just this crazy, intense white noise that came out of nowhere. And I looked up, and everyone's on the ceremony. I'm the only person who's off to the side going, oh, shit. Oh, sorry, that's recorded. Okay. Whatever. So here comes this huge wall of rain.
Oh my gosh.
Literally a wall. There was nothing in front of it because you see it over the water.
Saw it coming.
The water was perfectly still. And you see this wall coming through. And so I was like, oh my God, where can I possibly go? There was a gazebo far back and behind all the guests. But I was like, that's just so far away. If they're staying out here, I'm staying out here. Yeah. And so everyone ran for the gazebo once the water came. They, of course, stayed in the middle of their ceremony. So I was like, all right, what do I do? Like, where do I go? And the parents stayed in their seats, and they each had 2 umbrellas. Nice. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go with mom and dad because there's no one else around. There's no other cover.
Right.
And I squatted down between them, and I put one camera under me to keep one camera somewhat dry,
right.
And then tried to make a little rain shield and just sat there and said, if they're staying, I'm staying. And I looked back to see everyone completely huddled and underneath the gazebo, and it was worth it. It was worth every bit of it for this moment, and they were so happy. They waited so long for this.
That's going above and beyond the call of duty, especially risking your equipment, right?
I know, that was really difficult.
I know. Please don't break camera.
That's right. That's what we have insurance for.
That's right.
And you know what? That's what our industry is great for.
Yeah.
We had an incident when we were shooting in Las Vegas, and every one of our cameras broke.
Oh.
Our gear, our backup gear, everything had a problem. And so we got the word out between your group, between the other photography groups, and the word got around that there was an SOS and we needed a camera. And a photographer showed up on site with their cameras and was just like,
nice.
Here you go.
Nice.
And we fixed our settings, and then just kept shooting as if nothing ever happened. So.
Fantastic. So here's a great example of what you're talking about, getting in close and again building trust with your clients. So
yeah, this one actually I've always loved this one just because it doesn't feel like we're there, but you knew we had to be. And it's interesting how many people ask me how we shot this. I'm simply shooting through the window of the door that's open. It happened to be that the shadow that's across her face, that's cutting through her face where you get that dark area to see her, happens to be our truck.
Oh.
So because our own truck was, we got super lucky with that one because we usually have to park in back around with everything, but because we have a bigger truck, there was no room for it. So they said, just park right here. And we're like, we can move it later on. We just need to be, the bride is getting out of the car to go do the ceremony. We need to be right here. And so they said, okay, leave your truck right there. And I just came around to the door and saw this moment of her dad so gently reaching out for her. And this is that sense of being in the right place at the right time for the call that you're going to make, that this is the right way to shoot this moment.
Yeah.
And for me, that's really funny. I'm sorry. My dog is snoring right now.
I don't hear him. I don't hear her.
She's so like keep her out. She might snore. She's got it. So as long as you don't hear it.
Yeah.
But so this was that moment of being in the right place, the right time, and shooting through these moments and making micro adjustments, making tiny little adjustments of where you are, where you need to be, refining your composition tighter and tighter until you're like, oh, hell yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
This is
and a lot of photographers would be in a situation. They say, oh, I'm not getting her whole face lit up because of the reflection. Oh no, this is a bad photo. But you turned it into a much more interesting and eye-catching composition because the way that the shadow goes across her face. I think that makes it a much more interesting photo than if it was just another good photo of being close in to this moment, but this adds another visual element I find is much more fascinating.
Well, it leaves something up to the viewer to
Yes.
finish the story
Well
themselves
said. Yeah.
and to figure out what's going on here, why is it happening, but also emotionally, you feel the calmness in her lips.
Yeah.
You feel the grace in her hand to her dad.
Yeah.
You feel his other hand is very soft.
Yes.
So you see that this is a very quiet moment, but you also feel the movement within everything. But if her whole face was in there, then we'd be like, okay, she's getting out of the car.
Mm-hmm.
Be very literal. And that would be the extent of the time you're going to spend with this photo. But because there's elements that are beyond your comprehension of a bride getting out of the car with her dad, you have to spend more time with it, creating that story, finishing that story emotionally of what's going on, and fulfilling the rest of the story in your brain, because your brain is not being told. There's a whole part of it that's missing.
Yeah. I also like the way that my eye just sort of moves across the image and rests on her face, rests on her lips. It's just
and all the lines lead to that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
Dad plays a role in that, of how he's in there. The reflection of the car coming in plays a role to that. Our truck played a role to that.
Yay, truck.
This is all chance. All chance right there.
It's the type of photo that just keeps rewarding you. The more and more you look at it, the more you keep thinking about it, the more you see how great it is.
Yeah, thank you.
And this one, I've loved this one for years. Such a great
It
moment.
still makes me laugh.
I know, right?
It's so good. So this was years ago. We were shooting this very high-end wedding, but our couple's energy didn't necessarily match the wedding. And so by getting to know them, we found out this was Mom's wedding. This was everything she had wanted. It was the high-end venue, the relay and chateau. It was the fancy jewelry. It was everything Mom wanted. But our couple was like, I don't want to say rude and crude, but like in a fun way. But they were just
they're out there.
No barred. They're out there, no holds barred, lots of F-bombs, very kind of New York energy in a sense. And they were funny and they were sarcastic. And so knowing they had this energy, this is right after the ceremony, I always jump in the front of the car, even if it's just for a second. This one I decided to, let's take the ride together. And so we're sitting in the car and I'm looking back and they're like snuggling together and like nuzzling up to each other. And I was like, what the hell is that? And they're like, what? We just got married. And I was like, but that's not you guys.
Right.
And they go, well, what the hell do you want us to do?
Right.
Stupid human tricks? And I was like,
yeah,
that wasn't my idea. And he's like, all right, fine. And he goes, I can drink a glass of champagne without my lips, without using my lips. I was like, what are you talking about? And stir it up. The whole concept is end up.
Oh my gosh.
But, I mean, this is the driver trying to stay on the road. She's then cracking up. He's doing whatever he's doing. But it can't. There's things like this come about by relationships.
Yeah.
And being able to be close up. Could they have had this moment on their own? And I'm just a fly on the wall, sure. But this one wasn't necessarily provoked by me, but it was at least me saying to them, "Hey, you're acting like a everyday bride and groom right now. Okay, so you got married. Like, I got a pretty shot of you guys snuggling up together, but that's just not you. Like, I want to see you guys right now."
Hey, I think you got their personalities there pretty well.
Yeah. Right.
He's not the shy retiring type.
No.
Yeah.
This is everything.
That's a great example.
Oh, this is another one of those too. Oh, we love our couples so much.
Yeah.
We always have such close relationships with them, and we're grateful to only have a few per year so that we can really spend that time and build those relationships together. So this bride, she and I had spent a long time together. So I had gotten to a point where, there's usually no filter with me. There's a respect filter that drops. And she was yelling at all her bridesmaids and kind of just freaking out. And at one point, I kicked everyone out and shut the door. And I was like, you've got to cut the shit. And she's like, excuse me? And I was like, this is getting ridiculous. You're trying to write your soon-to-be husband a letter, and you're yelling at everybody. So as nobody wants to deal with this right now, I'm going to be the only one to say it because I'll be the bad guy here. You can hate me later if you want, but we've got to get you dressed. So find one person, delegate, let them go take care of everything, and just tell them what you want and let them do it. And that keeps everyone out of your hair. I'm like, but just trust me on this, because we just needed to move forward.
Yeah.
We're wasting so much time with this energy, and it was just getting old.
Yeah.
So, and we have the photos that are fun of, like, you know, her yelling, or it just wasn't, she looked really upset. It wasn't working. So when she finally got dressed and she turned around, her mother was like, "Oh my God, you're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." And she was literally up against the wall. And I squeezed in behind her because I was like, this reaction's going to be everything. And all of the bridesmaid is sitting there, like, trying her best to smile and nod. And then sure enough, as soon as she just, like, was like, "What do you think?" She was just like, "Okay." Kind of had enough of this. So she had been going for a while, and all of a sudden she's all happy, and everyone's like, "You've been driving us crazy for hours." So this is an actual honest result of a bride kind of crossing that line between Beautiful Bride and Bridezilla.
Right.
But so it hits that balance with mom and the bridesmaid both having their own individual reactions like that.
Yeah.
But
well, it definitely tells there. I know that there was a story going on, but I'm glad you filled in the details there.
Oh yeah, I mean, have I ever told a bride to cut it out, like,
Right.
just knock it off?
Yeah.
Like, I've never actually said that. But I mean, we were just wasting. I'm on a timeline with you, and everyone's got to dance around this timeline, and so we found out that the reason that she hadn't eaten, and she kept telling everybody she had eaten. So they got cheeseburgers, and she shoved all the food in her face, and then everything was fine. So
yeah. But but great use of positioning and framing here as well, which I really appreciate.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was up against the wall.
Yeah.
It was one of those, your camera smashed against your face.
Right.
In somewhere. So
but again, photographically though, you're saying, okay, I can frame those two with the bride, and she's appropriately out of focus. You got the right focus points and everything.
Yeah, she's a huge part of this photo. I mean, you need to see who, like,
she's part of the story, right? Exactly. Yeah, and again, it's another great moment captured. So
I love this one.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting one for me, compositionally wise. So walk me through this one.
We had just been in the darkest room I have almost ever been in for getting ready. And I was just fiending for some more light. It was unbelievably dark. We like to keep things very organic during getting ready. So we'll bring in a little bit of light, but we still keep things a little more chill, a little more organic. And all the bridesmaids had just peeled out, and I knew I wanted her to come down the stairs, and I wanted to see that big bank of windows. And as she started to come out, I had just her and those windows, and it was very boring. It was very plain. It was very expected. Here's all the square windows. Here's our bride. And it was a little bit too literal. And I looked over and I realized all the bridesmaids had circled back to walk in the same opposite direction she had been coming out of. And so I went behind the door that was there. So you can see the door jamb in the middle. That door was open, and I went behind that door to shoot in there because it's the only place I could stand to get both those elements coming in and out. Well, the bride and the bridesmaid coming in and out. But so this was one of those moments where it was just like, all right, I need to tell the story different to make this more interesting and not so literal. And a lot of those times, I feel like this is just a little too straightforward, I'm looking for someplace to hide, or not necessarily hide, but a place that I can be that brings me out of an expected element. And especially when there's glass and things to shoot through, that's always super fun, but you never know what'll come out at that point.
Right. No, it's a bold choice. It's a bold composition. To be able to say this might work. I've done that too, where I say, well, this might work. This might not work. Let's try it. And when it does work, it's so rewarding that you took that risk and took that chance to do something a little bit unusual, right?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, don't forget, I did take the safe shot.
Of course.
So there is that expected photo of, like, the bride in the doorway with that big bank of windows. And as soon as she hit that light, I was just fiending for her to get into the light.
Yeah.
But then, I wanted something a little more complex.
Yeah.
This was it.
But there's a number of elements here. I mean, it's the lines, it's the way my eye moves again across the photos back and forth, connecting the two parts of the story together. It's just one of those things that I like to look at for a while and sort of analyze in my brain why I like it, right?
Yeah, thank you. And the color. I love this one.
The colors are great too, yeah. Yeah, I actually tried to imagine this in black and white, and I think the colors add a little bit extra dimension to this.
They balance it. They
Yeah.
bring because a lot of times when I go to put a photo in black and white, I know from the very beginning that it needs to live in black and white.
Hmm.
Um, as if years ago when we shot film, we would take a roll of black and white film. I know this is very different to think
Yeah.
about for most people nowadays,
Yeah, I
but we
know.
would actually take a roll of black and white film and put it in our camera and know that we could only shoot black and white. There was nothing else going
Yep.
on. There's no
No going
color. There's
back.
no going back. Like, so that you know ahead of time this is happening.
Yeah.
Oh, this is
Another
awesome.
great moment, close in, peak emotion, great placement. I mean, just so much going on here.
I think what really makes this one is just the lack of feeling of a photographer being there. There's
Yes.
so many
Yeah.
moments. It's very, I mean, you can tell in this photo, if you know photography, you know that I'm very close to them with a wide angle lens.
Yep.
And that's very difficult. As with all the photos we've been looking at, I pretty much shoot the whole day with a 24. So I'm very up close with everyone, but I know when to get up close and when to be far, and
Hmm.
um, how to watch what I'm putting into the frame and why. So I had known ahead of time that she was going to do this, and lift her up and carry her back down the aisle.
And how did you know that?
One of the brides told me. So the bride, and that's lifting her up, said, "Hey, I think I'm going to carry her back down the aisle." But who knows what that means? That could mean she
Right.
just scoops her up. I didn't know where it was going to happen. It was just a thought of like, "Hey, I think I want to do this."
You knew
This
something was
exact
going to
bride,
happen.
I knew something was going to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
She actually went down the aisle on horseback, which was really beautiful.
Wow.
I think this was her, like, she got to have her moment on the way down. This was Kristen's moment on the way back. So I knew that that energy exchange was going to happen. I didn't know
Hmm.
when or where or what. And so when we shoot a wedding, you can actually see Chris in the background of that
Oh
one.
yeah, there he is.
Yep, he's in the back over there. So we always play different roles, and I'll usually prepare for the way back, and he'll get kind of the swing. I mean, we just kind of have our different ways of shooting.
Now I want to see his photo with you in it.
Yeah, that's a good call. I should go look for that. Oh, I didn't think about that.
So do you guys
We
always shoot together?
now we have two associates as well
Okay.
that shoot with us. They've been with us for years. So it'll either be Chris and I together, or myself with one of our associates, or Chris with one of our associates.
Okay.
And this year we may actually offer our associates together as well, just so that we hit different budget points.
Sure.
But surprisingly this year, because usually we've been saying Chris or myself with an associate. That way we can divide and conquer and be able to shoot. Even though we shoot 10 weddings a year, we still have a couple that are on the same day.
Yeah.
This year people have been paying extra to hire Chris and I together. And it was this like off the menu option that we said, you can get this. It's an extra $2,000. And they're like, okay, that's great.
Hmm.
And so now Chris and I are getting booked. People just want the two of us, but that also leaves then our associates to go out as a team, and we can at least hit a different budget point and be able to still have them work with us for artwork sales and things like that.
Okay.
So it keeps everybody working, which is great.
Yeah.
So this exact photo, I did know something was going to happen, didn't know what or when, but I said to Christina, no matter what you do, just ignore me. Pretend I'm not there, be in your element, do your thing, and just don't mind if I get close. And she knew this. We had done an engagement session.
Hmm.
We had spent time, obviously, getting ready, everything leading up to this. And it was just a reminder. Don't freeze. Don't look at the camera. Don't we're coming down the aisle. We got
Right.
married. Smile. Like, that's really difficult. And she was like, no worries. She's like, you don't worry about a thing. I got it. And
Nice.
so this was the result of that. Was Jessica had no idea. And you can see people's reactions. I do wish people were a little more reactive. I think that would have
They got a few in
created
there.
an
Yeah.
element.
Yeah.
There's a few, but I
Yeah.
think the next level element would have been like the shot of the two guys during their ceremony. Everyone's invested
Yes.
in that. That's what
You
brings
think
that.
with a moment like this, you think everybody would have turned to look, but maybe it was just happened too fast.
It happened fast, and
Yeah.
it happened halfway down the aisle.
Yeah.
It didn't happen from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So.
And you say most of your shoots are with the wide angle, and does Chris use the longer lens? Or how's that how you mix it up? Or
So yeah, I usually shoot with a 24 and a 50, and then I keep 85, 135 in a bag nearby.
So
And
you're
Chris,
prime. You're not a Zoom person, huh?
not a Zoom person. No, I'm so much happier being the Zoom. I am the Zoom.
Right. Your legs
But
are the Zoom.
I
Yeah.
am. It keeps me active. It
Yeah.
keeps me moving. It keeps me in control of deciding very specifically what I want my composition to be, and I have to make that happen.
Yeah.
I can't. There are plenty of times I was like, I kind of wish I could just stand here and like Zoom and just have a different composition, but that's because I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
So I have to get up and make it happen.
Yeah, I found that I did have a Zoom, but 90% of the shots were locked out all the way at 24 anyway. So I thought I should have just shot prime. So
Yeah, just two crimes.
yeah,
They make me happy. It's one less thing to have to think about.
yeah,
And really, when I'm shooting, I'm doing everything I can to not have to think about anything, so that I can just focus on everything that's in front of me. No pun intended.
Yeah.
On focus on things. But so Chris will shoot with 35 and 85, or we do have a 70 to 200. It's too big and heavy and bulky. Very rare that I use it. Chris will bring it out once in a while to shoot with it.
Every once in a while, you got to have it. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I can always move. So 50 is mostly details, getting in a little bit tighter, wanting something that's not as wide for a little while, being a little bit cleaner, and for details. And then the 24 is the rest of the day. But I want to get in close. I want to elements that will lend itself to the story in every photo. I was actually just talking with someone about this one the other day. She had no idea the dog came in on her dress there. I was speaking with her a second ago. And then as I was talking to her, I mean, I try to give everyone the utmost respect and be eye contact with them. Because of the relationships we've built during the day and during our time together. So we've done an engagement session. We've had tons of phone calls. We've had this whole experience. Most of the time, they're okay with the fact that I may turn around and say, I need to do something different, like in this very moment. Like they want that from me. So I don't have to stand there and talk to them and finish what I'm doing. So as I'm speaking with her, I see the dog come in out of the corner of my eye. And so as I see him come in, I actually take a step back, and I'm talking to her. I take a step back, and as soon as that dog hit her dress, I went down to the ground and literally pushed back. I was like, oh my God, everything. And so her reaction happened because she didn't know the dog was there. Her reaction happened because I moved to get this shot. Yeah. So, but it worked perfectly that it made her turn in that moment, because had I stayed standing and talking to her or whatever was going on in that moment, it would have been, oh, look, a dog. It just would have been a different moment.
Right.
It's just kind of this was that like moment everything happened. You can see the lift in her arm. Just, you can tell that it's not the moment after or the moment before. So.
And I'm guessing all ambient lighting that was in the room. This was not, you didn't add any light here? This was all ambient light,
yeah. No, definitely not. Yeah. No, and like I said, we try to not do too much with light. We probably will a little bit more, but most of our light is reception. Or when needed. We try to stay very organic when we're shooting, getting ready into ceremony.
Yeah. Here again, it's partly luck and partly skill to be able to capture that exact moment when the dog. If they didn't have that eye connection, it wouldn't be as great of a photo, right? But the fact that the dog's looking up at her, she's looking down at the dog.
Right. She really had no clue the dog was there. Yeah. It literally was like, why did you just drop to the floor? And what happened? And they expect me. Like I said, they expect me to just like suddenly need to sit down, take a picture, or suddenly turn to go do something, because I'm constantly working and thinking, and I don't spend too much time with them. So I think this was like right before, kind of like the, hey, do you want your veil on? Your veil's right there. You could see your sisters in the back, kind of whoever they're talking to over my shoulder. So this was kind of that, like, right before the ceremony was about to happen. They brought the dogs in, and sure enough, this is just that moment that everything happened.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites. It's like all hands on. How many people does it take to get someone dressed?
Yeah, really.
It's just an incredible thing. I went to photograph the guys getting ready recently because Chris will usually go with the guys, or whoever I'm shooting with, one of our associates, Tony or Kyla, will go with the guys, and I'll stay with the girls. And I switched and went with the guys and was like, that's it. Like, that's how fast you got dressed.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Where's all those other elements? Where's the sparkle and the fluff? And
there's definitely a different dynamic, yeah.
Massively different dynamic, and they do it so fast. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So this is one of those moments when you're like, oh my God, there's so many people right here. How do I show the intensity of what's going on, but the beauty in what's happening with the ruffles and the dress and the tulle and the way it's hitting the light right now? Because even though everyone created a shadow, the light in the room was coming a little bit upwards. It was like a room that had like dormers. Is that what they call them? When
right.
The light, the windows are like on an angle a little bit, and
okay.
I mean, it's kind of like on the top floor when there's a peaked roof,
right?
But then the windows kind of like go out.
Jet out, yeah.
Yeah, so it was like a little bit higher, and the light came down and lit the dress. Even though everyone went down, you would have thought it would have been a shadow, but it was just the way the window was. So yeah, I mean, and you have to make very quick, snap decisions. In this moment, the decision was, I'm going to go high. I'm going to be high. I'm going to be low. I'm going to get in close. I'm going to choose in a moment to be very far away. I mean, just mixing it up constantly, but making the decision that is the right call for that moment.
Yeah.
And that's the best way that this situation, given composition, light, energy, emotion, everything, this is the best way it could have been captured.
Yeah. And I think that's a good tip too for photographers to remember. I mean, I always went with the idea of anytime you shoot from a high angle or a low angle, you immediately made the photograph more interesting because that's not people's usual viewpoint. So always, be thinking of that in terms of how can I present this in a way that most people are not seeing this, and that will make it a much more visually interesting photo.
Exactly, because we're not in these places. We're not standing right above a dress when it's about to go on for someone. So it gives the viewer a sense of wonder and almost a time to suspend their disbelief. Is this what this really looks like? Yeah. Am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? So they want to stay longer with it.
I think I have another one coming up with that as well. But this looks like the same.
It is.
Oh, there's the horse you were talking about.
That's the horse.
Ah, okay, got it. I recognize the tattoos as well, right? And the shoes. So.
Yeah, and the shoes. Yeah, exactly. So this was one of our favorite weddings, and this is where, when we were talking about sales beforehand, it sounds like we shoot only high-end weddings, and that's not true. We shoot our clients' weddings, and sometimes our clients have very much DIY, and this is who I am, and this is what I want, and we have some clients who are at the Ritz or the Plaza Hotel, and everything is done up, and there's glitz and glam and the flowers and all of that. So this was one of our DIY weddings. And literally 10 minutes before this photograph, her mother was still sewing her dress.
Wow.
And
last minute.
So she decided, it was very last minute. All morning, she was behind the sewing machine sewing her dress. And so they decided to leave the train of the dress very, very, very long. And you can see the edge of the fabric. I mean, you can see there's like three different fabrics. And
so the white and pink on the back of the horse, that's like a train?
It's a long piece of fabric that's not or cut in any way, but it's a train of the dress. Okay. I mean, that's kind of what we love about DIYs. It's whatever you want to make it.
Yeah.
So yes, this is the train of the dress. So they get her up on her horse. She's a horseback rider. This is her personal horse. And she gets up on it, and everyone walks away to go get ready for the ceremony, and I'm the only one back there with her. And as I backed up to take this photo, I was like, who does this? Who sits side saddle with a dress that's barely...
Side saddle, bareback, too.
Bareback, right. Bareback, side saddle, with shoes on, with a dress that's barely covering you, and this huge, long, like, raw fabric train. I was like, this is such a great detail.
It really is.
And I went to take the picture, and I noticed the horse getting extremely uncomfortable and very much bothered by the fabric that was on his back. And she was like, it's okay, it's okay. And I looked over at the horse and I'm like, this is not okay. And just as he was about to buck up, I pulled the fabric off the back of him, and he
My.
settled back down.
Oof.
And she looked over at me and was like, "Holy shit, you just saved me!"
Oh.
And I was like, "It's okay. Everything's okay.
Everything's fine."
Everything's fine."
Wow, that could have been bad, but yeah.
Could have been very bad,
Yeah.
and especially because she's obviously bareback, side saddle,
Yeah.
side. I don't even know what you call that. It's not a side saddle. There's no saddle.
Yeah, sideways.
Yeah, and I looked around in that moment. I was like, "Oh my God, this is just me. I have to do something right now." So, ripped the fabric off, and just balled it up in my hands in that moment. And she just looked at me and was like, the horse started to go down the aisle. And she's like, "What do I do?" And I just handed her all the fabric. I was like, "Here." And she just shoved it all behind her, and it just went the rest of the way down the aisle. I mean, it didn't matter. What mattered is the horse stayed calm, and what her biggest dream was just to ride the horse down the aisle, so nothing else mattered. And then little did she know she was going to get carried the rest of the way back down as well. So she never actually walked down the aisle. So.
Yeah, her feet never had to touch the grass.
No,
but it's an interesting photographic choice, though, because this did turn. It could have been like a portrait on a horse, and it turned into more wedding detail focus. Like, this is some really interesting visual details of this wedding that we want to focus on. So I'm assuming, was that a conscious choice, or was there cropping that took place afterwards, or what was going on in your head?
Yeah, this is a full frame photo. This is a detail shot. I love all these elements, the raw rope, the flowers coming around the horse, just all these different elements. And I had a hard time with this because it's like, where do you crop on her shoulder? And you can see that extra give of the 24. You can see that little bend on the end there, because it really was, I don't want to crop her neck, but it's not about her. It's about all these elements that are coming together to make this her situation, and no one else's. No one else will ever have this photo of all these elements in this manner. That's what I wanted to give her.
It's a unique photo. There's no question.
Yeah, exactly.
And like you said, when I probably look at 250,000,000 photos a year, so whenever I see something unique, it's always a welcome. It's a relief. I go, oh, great, something unique, fantastic.
That's what we try to go for with everything, and that's why I said our photos are so simple.
Yeah.
But it's about finding those unique elements, those unique perspectives, the way to say no one else will ever have this but you, because this is you right now.
Yeah, and also partly lucky to have some great diffuse lighting there as well.
What are the chances, right?
Yeah.
The light was perfect for this.
It's spectacular.
I was hoping for bright light, so it would be very contrasty and bright and bold, and it ended up this like soft, beautiful,
I love it,
detail because of the light.
Here's another great example of angle as well, which I loved.
Angle and getting close.
Yes, really close. You're a foot from his shoulder.
I am. And the thing that you can't see is the 100, 200 people that are literally behind my shoulder and the way back. And so in the Jewish tradition, they have what they call a tish and a bedekin before the ceremony. And the bride and groom, the men will all be together during the tish, the bride during the bedekin, and the bride and groom will come together, and everyone will cheer them in, parade them in and cheer them in, usually the groom to the bride. And then he'll, I forget how all the details go right now, but he'll lift her veil, they'll see each other, give each other some blessings and love, and then they'll go off and get married. So as everybody came in, I was photographing the whole processional in, and then I turn around thinking that there's still room for me to get out, but I had gotten surrounded. And so there was no way in. And I looked at everybody and was like, oh man, I don't really want to be here. I'm right in the middle of everything. And they literally pushed me in further. Like, you need to be here. This is important.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right.
Such a great moment.
No one cares. I'm going in for it. And I was just like, you weigh in right now. And just boom, right up above and get right up there. And this is what they have me there for. This is what they have us there for. They want us to get in close. They want us to hand them back how it felt to be there. So they've given us permission. It's just that personal feeling that I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm really in the middle of all this right now, but it doesn't matter. They want us there. And usually I send Chris in because he's somehow more, I don't know, full head of gray hair. He's more inconspicuous, but don't forget I had a long head of dreadlocks for years. Felt very obvious if I was there. But that's what we're there for. I mean, and that's where this photo it took on a different role, because who's in that position? How do you get that close for such a personal moment, it takes, again, a lot of trust, a lot of energy to be able to say, yeah, this is the right way to do it.
Yeah, well, it's trust with your clients, but also from a photographer's point of view, a lot of newer photographers are, I don't know if shy is the right word, but they're apprehensive about getting in close, even though they feel like their clients trust them. But it does take a certain attitude to say, I'm going to be bold, I'm going to be assertive, I'm going to be in there because that's what I'm getting paid for. That's what these clients want. And you can get such great moments like this. I mean, look at the two hands both touching back and forth. It's just such a great moment.
I think that also takes a level of respect.
Yeah.
I think getting in close can't be done intensely. It needs to be done with intent. It needs to be that I am here with focus and working, and to be cool, calm, and collected, and there with reason and with love. So if it's not, you should be able to feel if it's not the right place for you to be in that moment. Mm-hmm. But also, they know, parents know you're there for a reason. Everyone else can figure that out later.
Yeah.
So are there some people who are like, oh my God, what are you doing there? Of course, as there should be. It's definitely a very ballsy place to be. I mean,
it is.
Right. Yeah. But they know we're there with love, and that's where the connection with your client and that element makes a huge difference. So we build that trust from an early point to be able to be there. It's not just that we go up and do it. That trust is built ahead of time.
Yeah. Well, just up. I so appreciate you taking the time to do this. And as always, I love looking at your images and learning more about what's going on with you. So, please stay safe in New York. Hearts and prayers and thoughts are all with you guys out there. And I think what you'll do is this type of thing is both inspiring to other photographers and also gives them something that they can say, oh, there's a new idea I can go with, or there's a new thing I can provide for my clients, and something we can all work with in this semi-downtime.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that can be done right now. So I think, like I said, this is a huge time for photographers to build on the strengths of what they do best, which is provide for their clients and provide the love and energy of what really matters to them. Yeah. And so we could very well come out on top out of all this and have people desire what we offer more than they ever did before. So I think it's worth it to keep that in mind.
Boy, really well said. I can't improve on that. So take care. On that note, give my best to Chris and take care, and I hope to talk to you soon.
So thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.